How do we think of 13-year-olds in America today? Okay, let's go through the litany. Petulant, moody, defiant, disrespectful, self-destructive, irrational, irresponsible, can't be trusted. 150 years ago, approximately, Alexis de Tocqueville came to this country from France, studied American culture. The Europeans were fascinated with us at that point in time. I wrote a book that is still available on Amazon. You can go into any bookstore in America probably and find it. It's called Democracy in America. It's a classic. In the chapter on the American family, de Tocqueville talks about the American teenager and describes 13, 14, 15-year-old young people in America 150 years ago as exactly the opposite of the description I gave you a few moments ago. He describes these young people as responsible, community-minded, selfless, quite rational, etc., etc., etc. Where were the hormones 150 years ago? We need to wake up in America, folks. The problems we're having with teenagers today, we are creating. You know, I keep quoting Pogo in my talks. We have met the enemy and he is us. In cultures around the planet, when children reach the age of 13, rituals were held. Now, you're all beginning to recognize this, I know. Rituals were held that marked the end of season 2, the completion of the curriculum of season 2, the leadership curriculum, and ushered parent and child through these rites of passage into season 3. The ritual that we in America are most familiar with in this regard is the Jewish bar, and more recently bat mitzvah. And Margaret Mead, a very famous sociologist from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, called these rituals that took place in traditional cultures all over the planet. She called them puberty rites. They weren't puberty rites. She was seeing things through a very narrow Western perspective. 100 years ago, the average age for puberty worldwide for girls was 15, for boys 16. These rituals were held at 12, 13. They were not puberty rites. They were rites of passage. They transformed the role of parent, and they also redefined the child. And at age 13, the child was regarded as a functional adult member of the community, an apprentice adult, but nonetheless responsible, and held fully responsible for his own behavior. My father, who passed away a few years ago at the age of 86, told me that when he was a teenager, some 75 years ago, he sold apples and pencils on the street corners of Charleston, South Carolina during the Depression, and brought his money home and put it on the kitchen table and walked away from it. And I said, "Dad, you didn't keep any for yourself?" He said, "It wasn't my money." Now see, this is a totally, and here's a grown man talking, but he's talking about his value system when he was a young teenager. It wasn't my money. I said, "It wasn't you were the guy out there selling the pencils and the apples." He said, "You know something, son, this is the problem with your generation. You don't have an appreciation," he said, "for fundamental values. Something's happened in this country," he said, "that is more destructive than anything we read about in the papers every day." He said, "My father worked for the railroads. He brought home a paycheck. He didn't believe that that paycheck was his. I sold stuff on the street corners. I brought home that money. Just like my father brought home his paycheck, I didn't believe that money was mine. Just like my father believed that was to help all of us. And I submit, this is the kind of thing that has caused the sea change in attitude in parenting over the last 50 years. This has caused an entirely new teenager to emerge in America at age 13.